David Croft.
And a very good afternoon from the Styrian Mountains, where the uphill battle for the chasing pack to try and close the gap Mercedes have established at the top of the championship continues once again. Welcome along to the Austrian Grand Prix round 8 of 19 in 2015. We're located round about 700 meters above sea level in the most gorgeous part of the world, and a track that, despite only having 9 turns, is a real test. High speed and bumpy for all 20 drivers on the grid today. 2 DRS zones as well to try and help overtaking, and will we see some daring moves into turn 2 and that elevation change which helps braking and might help you get past, promote some daring battles at the front between Hamilton and Rosberg, or maybe Sebastian Vettel, who Mercedes think could be quite close in today's race, or maybe even the Williams pair as well. We're set for battles throughout here, Martin Brundle, but despite getting themselves into a bit of a spin yesterday, it was still Mercedes that were dominating.
Somehow, isn't it? Yeah, and it just shows you how hard they were pushing, qualifying both the championship contenders off the road, and they know that in race conditions Vettel and the Ferrari are very fast. Somehow Ferrari navigated one of their cars back into 14th place, but we can expect Kimi Raikkonen, I think, to come through reasonably quickly. It says there's a 30% chance of rain. Well, it was a 30% spitting with rain on the grid, at least I would say, but anything like enough to keep the track wet, of course. So bone dry it is.
Very greasy yesterday, but dry at the moment, as you say. And for the 4th race in a row, Mercedes-Benz have a front row lockout. Lewis Hamilton taking his 45th career pole ahead of his teammate Nico Rosberg. Sebastian Vettel starts 3rd from where the race was won last year. Felipe Massa, the pole sitter last year, starts 4th. Nico Hülkenberg, his and Force India's best qualifying of the season, is 5th, ahead of Valtteri Bottas for Williams. Max Verstappen in the top 10 once again for Toro Rosso, alongside Felipe Nasser. Sauber in Q3 for the first time since China. 2 Lotus in Q3 for the 2nd race in a row. Romain Grosjean just ahead of his teammate Pastor Maldonado. Then comes Marcus Ericsson for Sauber, ahead of Carlos Sainz in the other Toro Rosso. Sergio Perez didn't make it out of Q1, neither did Kimi Raikkonen. The big upset from the first part of qualifying. They're alongside each other. Danny Kvyat gets a 10th place penalty for a new combustion engine. Roberto Merhi out-qualifies his teammate Will Stevens for the 2nd race in a row. Daniel Ricciardo, another 10th place penalty for him. He will start the race needing a 5-second penalty at the beginning of his pit stop. And massive penalties for the 2 McLaren Hondas. Fernando Alonso gets an extra drive-through penalty in the race. Jenson Button, a 10-second stop-go penalty. They are very much in a race of their own today, Martin Brundle.
But McLaren have hoovered those up well today, haven't they? And then they've got further ones to take in the race. That needs to change. That system, frankly, it doesn't work. This is race 8 out of 19. We'll keep you up to speed on what they're doing. But of course, it's first year for Honda, so they'll hopefully be somewhat better next year. But it's penalties is going to be a word that we use a lot through this year. Introduced
for all the right reasons, but in hindsight leaving us as confused as our trigonometry homework when we were but O-level students all those years ago. Confusing and just about as easy to explain as well. Explain this. What has Lewis Hamilton got to do today? Where's his big threat? From his teammate or from Sebastian Vettel, I wonder?
I think they've all got to keep it on the track first today, Crofty. We've seen so many errors, haven't we? Because the track's low grip, it's only 27 out there, the surface temperature. So first and foremost, they've got to make sure they don't beat themselves. I think the 2 Mercedes are very close. They know they've got to keep an eye out for Vettel. 1 or 2 drivers out of position midfield, and of course Raikkonen and co at the back as well. We can look forward to Kvyat, I think, coming through there as well, and Daniel Ricciardo down in 18th. So I think there'll be plenty to watch all the way through the field.
Nico Rosberg, last year's winner, as we returns to this part of the world after an absence of 11 years. Red stripes, super soft tyres then on the cars in the top 9. Romain Grosjean starting on the super soft as well. Pastor Maldonado, his teammate. Lotus splitting their strategy, will start, as you can see, on the soft compound tyre. Others going onto the soft tyre. Sergio Perez and Kimi Raikkonen who Ferrari are expecting to storm through the field from his lowly grid spot this afternoon of 14th. And at the back, both McLarens taking the super soft tyre, and Daniel Ricciardo thinking he's better to run a longer first stint on that soft compound.
Yeah, so after a warm-up lap, that soft compound, the yellow mark tyres, I think there'll be a handful on the first lap. Remember, the cars have got another 100 kilograms of fuel on board as well now, the equivalent of a passenger and a half. And so that makes them somewhat different animals to drive compared to the last time they were at the wheel, of course, in qualifying yesterday.
Hamilton's pole lap, by the way, just half a second shy of the all-time lap record here that Michael Schumacher set in a 3-litre V10 engine in the middle of a tyre war with unlimited fuel flow and a car that was 100 kilos lighter as well. Quite impressive. That modern-day Formula 1 cars have that much speed still. The Constructors' Championship, gap of 105 points then for Mercedes ahead of Ferrari. Williams in third place. Red Bull distant fourth from Williams. Lotus and Sauber and Force India in a really tight battle for 5th, 6th and 7th. Toro Rosso ahead of McLaren, who have 4 points, and Marussia still the only team yet to score points in 2015.
Still too amazing to see McLaren right back there, isn't it? And then, of course, right back on the grid today as well. Dark days for the McLaren team. I'm sure they can pull out of that. It's a question of how quickly. Look at the heat haze there. It's certainly not coming off the racetrack, is it?
Jenson Button on the team radio complaining that he's got a false neutral and maybe a few technical gremlins already in his car before the lights really go out.
Yes, it means you pull for a shift and it either falters as it goes dog to dog, or you have to pull again to get the next gear up. It's unusual for with these gearboxes, but when I was lucky enough to drive the Force India recently, one outstanding thing in my mind is just constantly shifting gears in these cars, because they've got a lot of torque, 8-speed gearbox, and it becomes subliminal in the end. You just keep pulling for gears, whatever you're doing inside the thing.
Even on a track like this, 2.68 miles long, with only 9 corners, you're still changing gear around about 50 times during the course of a lap. Good job it's all done on paddles these days, not the old stick shift. They'll be complaining, these drivers, of a very sore right arm, as Dr. Helmut Marko looks on from the Red Bull garage with the 2 young Red Bull protégés at Toro Rosso ahead of the 2 drivers in the senior team after engine penalties were taken for Red Bull. You can see the uphill climb towards turn 1. It's a short run down to turn 1 here, only 185 metres. Is it long enough for anybody to challenge the pole sitter? 5 lights ahead of the drivers. It's lights out in Austria, and away we go. Seems like a pretty good start there from Nico Rosberg. Hamilton tries to cover him over, and down towards turn 1. Has Rosberg got into the lead? He has, you know. Ahead of Hamilton, Sebastian Vettel in third. Long drag now down towards turn 2. Felipe Massa in fourth. Ahead of Nico Hulkenberg, Valtteri Bottas and Max Verstappen dueling in 6th and 7th place. But now we go into this second corner, and a little lock up there from Lewis Hamilton as he takes the wide outside line. But Rosberg keeps the lead.
He does indeed, so he's in the slipstream now. No DRS, of course, for the first 2 laps of the race, or after the safety car. And a little bit more, 1.8 metres.
Oh, that's Kimi Räikkönen, and on top of him is Fernando Alonso, and that's a very big accident. Räikkönen has collected Alonso and pushed himself and the McLaren into the barrier. The safety car, unsurprisingly, has been deployed. And that is a very big crash indeed, and great to see both drivers climbing out of the car, and both drivers seemingly, from our vantage point, Martin, looking a-okay.
Now, it's a very high speed part of the racetrack there, so you've got to wonder what Alonso was doing anywhere near Räikkönen. So one of them's had either a brilliant start or a bad start for Räikkönen. I'm pretty sure I saw Perez jumping the start out of the window here as well in the Force India. Both drivers okay. Let's hope there was nobody on the outside of that barrier in terms of a cameraman or a marshal or whatever. near that zone, and well, we're not going to see Alonso taking those drive-through penalties now, are we?
No, we're not. Here's interesting. Danny Kvyat comes into the pits, pretty much taking a free pit stop behind the safety car to change those super soft tyres into a set of soft compound tyres. I wonder if Red Bull here think they can go the whole race under one set of tyres and maybe make up a few places with their strategy. Ted, into you.
Is Fernando okay? Is Fernando okay?
Yep, Jensen, he's out of the car, he's okay.
Yeah, worry for Jensen Button and his teammate. This could take a while to clear up. Ted.
It was a broken front wing for Kvyat.
Ah,
yeah.
Thank you, Ted. Let's see what happened then to Kimi Räikkönen. Going into turn 2, as we ride on board with him here. Behind the, he must have had a decent start there, or the two Lotus has got a bad start. Oh, did Alonso actually trigger that accident, Martin?
There was a tap at the back, wasn't there? As Räikkönen, we'll have to see if he moved across the row, but that's when you're most exposed, of course, in a single-seater and open cockpit car. I think either he had a tap from Alonso, or he just dropped it under acceleration. On the soft tyres, the less grippy tyres. Of course, they use their start map. They have to keep the start map for the first lap, just as they do when they come out of the pits for the first lap, so that they don't come up with a launch control.
That's Will Stevens, sorry Martin to butt in, just pulling over to the side in his Mana Marussia as well.
I'm just remembering how difficult Kimi found that in Canada when he had that start map on, or the launch map out of the pits. So 3 cars out of the race already, and we need a different camera angle, but from on board Räikkönen's car, it looked to me like he had a tap, to be honest. But so he's either had a tap, or he's sort of fishtailed down the track, a bit of a tank slapper as we call it, and scooped up Fernando Alonso while he was at it.
So behind the safety car, and we've lost 3 from this race already. Let's look at the start now. Pretty apparent, Martin, within the first few metres, that Rosberg got a very good getaway.
Yeah, Räikkönen's not too bad in there either, but just looking at the back as well, Alonso did have a very good start, but he's quite a long way behind Räikkönen at this point. We've seen what happened to Hamilton. He tried to go down the outside into turn 2 and 3, and I'm just looking a bit further back, trying to work out. So Räikkönen's got pinched to the outside now. Now Alonso's directly behind him. And we're going to, where the hell he's going off to the battle at the front, unfortunately, so we're not going to get an overhead shot of that incident.
Yeah.
But Rosberg placing his car extremely well.
Danny Kvyat hit the back of Sergio Perez. I think Marcus Ericsson got a bit of a bad start, and that pinched them a little bit as well.
Just a perfect start. You could tell when he released the second clutch and shifted gear, Rosberg just kept the rear tyres hooked up perfectly, and that's what gave him track position. Vettel looking in his mirrors, looking ahead, back in his mirrors, and a comfortable 3rd place there, which he retains at the moment, and a grandstand view. Look how quickly those Mercedes are pulling away down the straight as well.
Now, did Perez get a bit of a jump start? A little bit too early, and then realised he'd gone too early and had to stop.
Yeah, I saw relative movement outside the window, and it was right there, the Perez-Hulkenberg thing, Perez-Ericsson thing, so maybe it was one of them moved.
Yeah, I mean, maybe Ericsson there, just a little bit of a stuttery start for him, like he realised that he'd gone a little bit too early.
Yeah, so then Perez had to go around him, and then it nipped up in the middle of the field. Räikkönen got hooked up in that as well.
So the order at the moment, as you can see, Rosberg, Hamilton, Vettel, the 1, 2, 3. In then comes Jensen Button for a pit stop, down to Ted.
This, we believe, is for debris. Jensen's been on the radio saying that they went through an awful lot of carbon fibre for the damage, and they're having a look at whether there's a puncture. Anyway, they're putting him onto the soft tyre from now on, and yeah, there away he goes with a very slow getaway. So that's not serving any of the the penalties yet.
No, you
is it,
can't.
Crofty?
You can't serve the penalty, the drive-through
penalty.
penalty behind the safety car.
Indeed,
so that's
yeah.
why McLaren are having to wait there for him to serve that.
So I'm going to see Jensen in again very soon after the safety car
Yes.
comes in. Quick one on Marcus Ericsson. He has also pitted to repair some damage.
As we look once again at the incident that brought out this safety car.
It still feels to me as if Kimi got a tap right at the back. But there we go. So he sort of survived that okay.
Yeah. Nowhere for him to go, was there? Trying to get past the Lotus.
It's still not definitive. That's so reminiscent of when Grosjean went across Fernando Alonso's cockpit back in Spa, isn't it?
Having to take his hands off the steering wheel very early there, Kimi Räikkönen as well, for all sorts of reasons, not the least the McLaren that was coming over his cockpit.
Can't read anything off the nose of the McLaren, see if it's wouldn't have any red paint on, because the rear crash structure and underneath there's got no red paint on it anyway.
So explanations at Ferrari as to just what happened, and this early crash bringing to an end Kimi Räikkönen's miserable weekend, really, in his first lap crash since the British Grand Prix last season. Ted, down to you.
Yeah, there was Sergio Marchionne from Ferrari, you just saw Crofty in that shot, who says that he is prepared to sell a supply of engines to Red Bull for 2017 onwards, if they want one, which is interesting. We'll talk about that later. Just quick one on Jensen Button. We understand from the radio conversations that now that they're on the soft tyre, Jensen will serve his drive-through when the safety car comes in. So immediately the safety car comes in, and then Jensen wants to try and do the whole race on this soft set of tyres. Well, it's ambitious.
I think they've seen what.
Give it a go.
I think, Ted, they've seen what Fiat's doing at Red Bull. He's gone onto the soft tyres now and thought, do you know what? Tyre life should be about 45 laps on that soft compound tyre. See if we can stretch it out. Got nothing to lose.
Just as you thought it couldn't get any worse for Fernando Alonso and McLaren. An early shower, sadly, but at least they're all okay.
Absolutely, and that's 4 consecutive retirements now for Fernando Alonso in Formula One, continuing his worst start to a season since his Minardi days in 2001. What about out in front then, Martin?
Game on.
Just be mindful on the restart, pressures are low, so just be careful with locking. That would really hurt us.
Because we need to go a long way on this set of tyres that's already done qualifying.
Rosberg's ahead, Hamilton's chasing him, he's got Sebastian Vettel right behind him.
He wants to be careful that he doesn't drop more than 10 places behind. That's very much the rule there for Lewis and all of the drivers, that you're not allowed to drop more than 10 places behind the car in front.
The safety car,
10 places, 10 car lengths, I should say, to be more clear.
yeah, he's caught up a little bit now. The safety car out for another lap at least. And what is the 6th Austrian Grand Prix to see an appearance by the safety car. So who else has made gains at the start of this race? Roberto Merri in the one Marussia that's still running, up into 13th place. Daniel Ricciardo running in 14th, and his teammate Danny Kvyat right behind him, having made his pit stop.
And Verstappen.
So remember, safety car line 1 is where there's no overtaking to, and the safety car lights will go out between 5 and 6, and you'll control the pace then.
I think they're allowed to tell them that. It's performance related, so the safety car's in this lap, and what he's being reminded of there is you can be overtaken before the last corner, so keep your wits about you.
Carlos Sainz up into 9th place for Toro Rosso. Just about to say Max Verstappen, his teammate, ahead of Valtteri Bottas.
I was indeed.
Yeah, Bottas not having the best first lap, but for the first time this season, Nico Rosberg has gained a place and a position at the race start, and he's done it at the expense of his teammate, and he now leads the Austrian Grand Prix. The safety car is coming in at the end of this lap, and we can get racing again with the ingredients there for a very intriguing battle to come over the next
lights off. Now Rosberg becomes effectively the safety car. He controls the pace now. He can fall back more than 10 car lengths. And if I was him, I'd be bolting somewhere very soon indeed.
Like now, as they said in unison. We are racing again. The lights go green. Max Verstappen is right on Nico Hülkenberg's tail as they make their way through the final turn. He got a decent start as well. He's got Romain Grosjean right behind him as down the main straight we go into the first turn. Rosberg then leads from Hamilton, from Vettel, from Massa, then Hülkenberg, then Verstappen, and then comes Valtteri Bottas, Roberto Merri losing a place there to Daniel Ricciardo in the Red Bull. The long run now at full blast, nearly 200 miles an hour towards turn 2. Rosberg easily, Martin, holding on to the lead in these early moments as we get racing again.
Yeah, they're being so careful not to lock their brakes and flat spot their tyres. Made them like 50 pence pieces for those of you that are in the UK who know what I'm talking about. But this is fascinating now. Rosberg got the upper hand. What has Hamilton got in reply?
Oh, Carlos Sainz having a moment there with Romain Grosjean and banging wheels. Maldonado right behind his teammate. Sainz running in 9th place, Grosjean in 10th.
And Perez got through on that one as well. It opened the door nicely for Sergio Perez in the second Force India, now up into the...
Scrapping along for the minor points places on that one. I mentioned Ricciardo ahead of Merri. Danny Kvyat still behind the Marussia. Towards the end of the lap we run again. And Nico Rosberg's advantage out in front is a second and a half over his teammate Vettel. That same second and a half back in third. With Felipe Massa sticking to within a second of the Ferrari. Hülkenberg right on Massa's tail, as you can see as well. And I wonder if that Force India has the pace with their new upgraded Mercedes engine they're running for the first time this weekend to maybe have a little dart at Felipe Massa.
Very cautious lap there from Lewis. Not wanting to block his tyres, but he's moved out of the DRS range there. It's 1 second of those 2 measurement points on the track. So he'll be getting a bit urgent, I would imagine, shortly.
Jenson Button has been into the pits for a second time to serve that 10-second stop-go penalty that he received for not serving the full extent of his grid penalty for the massive power unit change. Right, Sainz and Grosjean, whose fault's this?
Racing incident. Sainz had the position, he had the right to turn into the corner, understeered and knocked his rival off the track. But if we start penalising that, which may happen, but if we start penalising that, then is that a slow McLaren?
That just sounds horrible, doesn't it? That sounds like Jenson Button is coming back into the pits again. The stewards are investigating Marcus Ericsson for a jump start that we picked up a few moments ago. Button is already some 30 seconds behind the car in front, which is Marcus Ericsson. And I wonder how much longer he's going into this race.
Is that Grosjean closing in on the back of Perez as well?
Can't quite see Martin into the McLaren garage. Blame Jacques Villeneuve for that, but I'm told they're clearing a space in the McLaren garage, expecting Jenson in. And Ted, it looks like a double retirement for McLaren this afternoon.
Yeah, Jenson's asking what he can do, if there's anything he can do in the cockpit to help. It seems like some sort of transmission issue. They're telling him to select 5B. He says there is no 5B. Yeah, started with McLaren saying this was going to be a test weekend. Turned out to be
testing
much worse than that.
So Vettel, where's his pace then? He's currently 3/4 second off the Mercedes. They tease us with this Friday pace.
Box this lap, retire the car.
Whole power unit that went into that car, and I spoke to Eric Boulier yesterday, the racing director at McLaren, and I said, how many places is Jenson going to get as a grid penalty? He said 25. He said, but it might be more. So why is that? So we haven't started the car up yet. It could get worse. He was trying to make a joke of it, but I think he might have had a serious point in the back of his mind.
Incredible. What are they going to do? I mean, it's just going from bad to worse, isn't it?
You just wonder at this stage, the way it's going with the Honda engine, the way that Renault are struggling as well, does it need a little change in the regulations that says, for the benefit of the racing here, you two get 6 weeks to bring your engines up to speed. Unlimited development, go on and sort it out. Because at the moment, we've got two-tier racing in Formula One, haven't we, Martin? Those that have got a Mercedes and a Ferrari engine, and those that haven't.
Absolutely, but what a Ferrari, why would Ferrari and Mercedes do that? They're just going to say tough luck, but they're going to have to think of the bigger picture, because you're right. There's a decreasing chance over the years, decreasing chance to improve your engine, because you run out of tokens, you run out of time, and it's set in stone for years if you're not given. They're going to have to open that back up.
It's been done before. Remember when Renault was struggling before in the V8 era, and they were 40 horsepower down, and they were allowed just to develop a bit. It has been done before. I dare say a lot of you will think it might need to be done again. Hashtag Ask Crofty. We'll have the debate at the end of this race. Out in front, Nico. See how that gap has been opening up over Lewis Hamilton over the last 4 laps. Sebastian Vettel is still stuck in third, but dropping back from Hamilton. Felipe Massa and Nico Hülkenberg now separated by 1.2 seconds. So Massa's got himself out of DRS threat there as well. But Verstappen very much on Hülkenberg's tail as we look at Verstappen's teammate now, Carlos Sainz, and his battle with Felipe Massa. Behind them, Grosjean and Perez.
Checo, Grosjean behind on the super soft. In 7 or 8 laps, you will be on the better tyre.
So hang on, and it'll swing into your favour eventually.
So the safety car then has taken away any fuel issues in that respect, and pushes the race more to being a one-stop. The fact they were able to be easy on fuel and tyres through that safety car period. What's confusing me at the moment, and it's the middle sector again that he finally managed to ace in qualifying. Hamilton appears to have no answer to Rosberg's pace, and nor does Sebastian Vettel for that matter. And the other thing that's standing out here to me at the moment is all of that wing that the 2 Toro Rossos are carrying is doing them no harm at all at the moment. They're hanging on in there, and Verstappen and Sainz are 6th and 9th. They're looking pretty racy with it all, as Ericsson gets a penalty for the jump start, and
Jenson Button's hardly jumping for joy. He served his drive-through penalty, and now he can go and put his feet up because he's out of the race. Both McLarens out of this race. His teammate Fernando Alonso, whether he collected Kimi Raikkonen or just got caught up as Raikkonen lost control coming out of turn 2. It ended with Alonso's McLaren car straddling over the front of Kimi Raikkonen's Ferrari on the first lap. Both former world champions out. Will Stevens stopping for Manor as well. 4 out here.
Okay, Max, front brakes are hot. Front brakes hot. Need to get some free air.
This is Verstappen running closely behind the four-cylinder of Nico Hülkenberg.
yeah, that's a shame, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh, that's Romain Grosjean going off at the final turn. That's going to help Sergio Perez defend his 10th place at the moment. Grosjean a little ragged going through the final corner.
Perez is the highest driver in P10 on those soft tyres. Maldonado, Ricciardo and Kvyat too. 12, 13 and 14 also on those tyres. They'll be coming through nicely actually. It's not working out too badly for Red Bull.
While we watch the replay of Grosjean running wide going into that final turn, Marcus Ericsson has served his drive-through penalty, so that drops him down into 16th and last at the moment in his Sauber, whilst his teammate Felipe Massa still up in the points, currently running in 8th place.
So Hamilton matches Rosberg on in the middle sector of this lap. So does Sebastian Vettel out of interest. And the rest of them about a third of a second shy in that middle sector. So at the moment on this lap, Hamilton is a 10th up. Does it end up that way at the end of the lap? It does indeed, just over a 10th. So for the first time in the Grand Prix, Hamilton starting to eat back into that 2-second lead Rosberg has.
And the stewards will be looking at that Kimi Raikkonen Fernando Alonso incident after the race and investigating who caused that collision and why it happened. Maybe we can expect, if they do decide someone's at fault, a penalty carried over to the next race on that one. So Vettel now 4 seconds behind Hamilton. We talk.
Okay, Romain, we need to try and pass this Perez. Try and pass Perez.
Yeah, but with the lead, it's not possible.
He's trying, but that Force India is quite a stubborn object out in front, and they can't match them or better the Force India for power on the straight. So where is he going to get the chance? And Vettel now 4 seconds, Martin, behind Lewis Hamilton. We talk a lot about the undercut and a way of passing at the pit stops. Has Hamilton got himself out of undercut threat now?
He has. Ferrari's pace, not what they promised us. We'll see what happens in the second phase of the race when they get on the other tyres. But at the moment, Mercedes are waltzing away at the front, and it's Massa keeping Vettel very much in his sights.
Which Williams weren't necessarily confident that they could do. Mercedes were worried about the threat today of Ferrari. Williams were worried that the Ferrari might disappear into the distance a bit, but as you can see, not happening at the moment. And Bottas chasing hard after Max Verstappen as well. He needs to start to make a move through the field. Got bogged down behind that Toro Rosso and is currently 13.5 seconds off the lead of this race. As down the inside he goes, Valtteri Bottas, and thinks now this is the moment to get past Max Verstappen. But Verstappen's going to try and fight him back here, and Bottas, grateful for that Mercedes power that he's got, and the extra grunt coming out of that corner, just stays ahead.
And of course Bottas, although he was in front, got the DRS rear wing as well, because he was behind him at the detection point. So plenty of grunt behind him in that Mercedes motor, as you say, but also the DRS open. And here we see it. We talked to Bottas pre-race, didn't we, about, yeah, you're very good on the percentages. Is it time to get spectacular? And that's a nice move on a man who we know is pretty fighty himself when it comes to overtaking, is young Verstappen.
Great overtake.
Nicely executed. I wonder, without that DRS, would he have stayed ahead though? Bet your life that Verstappen would have been fighting him into turn 3.
Yeah, Verstappen got a cleaner exit out of the previous corner. They're still working okay for the Toro Rosso boys. They feared they were going to get absolutely swamped in the race with that amount of wing on. They were just praying for rain.
Well, doesn't look like rain at the moment. Sun's out here, track temperature 32 degrees, which is about as warm as it's been all weekend long, as Perez locks up, and that gives Grosjean a little bit of interest coming out of turn 2. He's got the DRS. He's starting to close a bit on Perez. Is it going to be enough for him to have a go on the inside down into turn 3? Needs to, and just bails out. Plays the percentage game. Kind of thought he wasn't going to make it, and will live to fight another day.
Force India tend to have a slippery car down the straights, don't they? And I think they're enjoying this new Gen 3 engine as well. Hamilton now just 1.8 behind. Gap coming down and down another 10th, 1.7 now. So he's slowly but relentlessly reducing that gap.
Ted, down to you.
And that's because, Martin, he doesn't really have any strategy options, does he? The Mercedes rule of thumb with strategy is that whoever's the lead car on track gets the first call. Team radio.
So for your info, Danny, we do have quite a bit of bodywork damage, which will affect the balance, mostly from the front. So adjust your control systems as you need to. You are going in the right direction.
Ricardo saying that it's understeer, so that's what they're talking about in that particular trouble on the Red Bull. But what do you think, Crofty? You know, it's the lead car on track at the time. It's not whoever was on pole position.
Absolutely.
So they're going to bring Rosberg in first, give him the best strategy. So Lewis really, and there's no choice in running a different tyre compound in the middle stint, because there ain't going to be a middle stint. It's going to be a one-stop, as we've been saying. So could Lewis go longer and hope that Rosberg struggles on warm-up and his soft tyres? Maybe, but I don't think it's going to help him very much. He's got to get past him on track, really, doesn't he?
That high line in turn 2, as you see the red light flashing on the back of the Force India, as it's harvesting, collecting electricity to charge its batteries up to over 160 horsepower when they're totally full, which is what gives these cars such incredible acceleration. But Perez takes a very high line in turn 2. It looks slow, it looks like he's missed the corner, but it gives him great traction down the next straight, and a bit of a swapper on there.
Not for the first time as well. Getting affected, you think, by Perez and running as close as he is to the car in front through there?
Unquestionably, but the problem for Grosjean is he's sandwiched between two drivers on what is currently, theoretically, the slower tyre, but will go somewhat further. And that's his teammate behind him, and Ricciardo and Kvyat too.
Good job there, Lewis. Closing that gap nice and steady.
By another 10th on the opening sector of this lap. Perez takes that high line that Martin was talking about again. Grosjean comes out of turn 2 again and thinks, I just wish I was about 20 metres closer. I might be able to have a dart down the inside at turn 3 here. And therein lies his problem. Under braking going into that turn 3 second gear corner at about 60 miles an hour. He's just not close enough to make the overtake move. Now, Hamilton 5.7 seconds ahead of Sebastian Vettel. He's well within undercut range of his teammate Nico Rosberg, but as Ted rightly says, Mercedes will give the preferential strategy or the first pit stop, if that indeed is the way it works out, to the driver that's leading on the track. The only way they'd swap it around is if they thought Hamilton would be in danger of the undercut from the man behind. 6 seconds gap now, that isn't a danger.
Red Bull really struggling for pace. Grosjean with a good chance there down the pit straight, but it's pretty fast through the apex of turn 1, so therefore not much of a braking zone. You're better to stay neat and tidy and in that slipstream all the way down to turn 2. No DRS.
This is surely where he's got to have a go into turn 2, because he's not getting close enough out of here, and he locks up a little bit later, maybe on the braking. Don't think the lockup hurt him too much though, as he made his exit out of there, but he's still, Martin, you feel 10-15 metres too far behind.
Yeah, but Perez is giving up the first part of the corner to gain through the exit and all the way down the next straight. That's frustrating Grosjean. Red Bull at the back, their pace, albeit on the soft yellow mark tyres, the slower tyres, they're in the 1:14s. We know one of them's carrying damage.
Pastor, are you being held up? Are you being...
He's not going to answer anything other than that, is he? Yeah. He might sense there's a place to be made here without putting an overtake in at all.
Would you like £1 million? Yes. So, where were we? Yeah.
That's the another lock up there, and it shows you the strain that those tyres go through and the smoke that comes off them.
Lovely shot. So I don't think Grosjean will take kindly to the call sounds like he's about to get. He's been told to get past Perez, can't, because Perez is too neat and tidy out of turn 2 and too quick down the straights. And I wonder how they're going to manage this.
You just wonder, because Maldonado's running on that soft compound tyre, is he now on the better tyre than Grosjean? So therefore, how much is it hurting his overall strategy to be stuck behind his teammate? I mean, Grosjean might have to play the team game here.
Yeah, they're not working out, aren't they? So the gap at the front now up to 2.4 seconds. Rosberg's just had a very good lap. Hamilton a very scruffy lap. We don't know why. Where is it? It's pretty much first in all the sectors, actually, isn't it? Particularly the middle, but a poor lap there for Lewis Hamilton.
It's the exact reverse of Canada, isn't it? Where Rosberg was gaining by a tenth, and then Hamilton would pull out. Now this time it's the other way round, and he put half a second between his teammate and himself. Grosjean gets close again to Perez, and all eyes at the grandstand on the outside of turn 1. You can't on this battle.
You can't honestly say Maldonado's being held up there, can you?
He's a long way back. He said this on the team radio, it's just too difficult. It's quite difficult when I get too close. You wondered, how much do you get affected by the car in front here when you do get that much closer? Out in front, 2.5 seconds, the gap between the two leading Mercedes, and that is Marcus Ericsson stopping on the pit straight. Is he just coasting there, or has he managed to find drive once again? I think he has. Ted?
Yeah, and that's critical, because if he did stop there, it would be an instant safety car, and we are now in everybody's pit stop windows. he has got going again, that is good, because it will be amusing chaos in the pits then. We might see a shuffling of the order, but I think we're about 5 laps off from seeing the first stops. The red tyre, the red striped tyre, the super soft, still the best tyre to be going on. The yellow striped tyre, the softer of the two, actually not working too well at the moment. Conditions, it's nice and hot down here, Crofty. Hottest I've known it for the whole day now the sun's been out.
Yep, 33 degrees, the track temperature as well.
Andy Richter.
Okay, copy. Switch off procedure, full switch off procedure.
It's on again.
Okay, try to continue.
It just went black, the whole screen.
Okay, copy Marcus. Continue and stand by.
Normally I find if you hit it hard enough, all the pictures come back on again.
That's a recycle, isn't it? DRS enabled again. They disabled it with that car on the pit straight.
He has got going again, so it still remains 4 drivers that we've lost from this race. Alonso and Raikkonen, Button and Will Stevens. Manor saying that there was an oil leak on Will Stevens' car. So for the second race in a row, one of the Manor Marussia cars retires. In Canada, it's Roberto Merry. And for Will Stevens, his first time this season, he's got a DNF to his name.
Hamilton's got no answer to Rosberg's pace on these tyres.
Yeah, 2.8 seconds, the gap between them, and that is Roberto Merry, who's coming up to be lapped. Merry running in 15th place at the moment. Marcus Ericsson is behind him after his problems that we saw on the main straight a few moments ago. And Ericsson 16th and last, because as I said, we've lost 4 cars, one of whom is Jenson Button, and we can hear from him now.
Well, Jenson, both McLarens are out of the race. It's sounding like a broken record now, isn't it? You must be massively frustrated.
I don't know what's worse, really. Doing the whole race 30 seconds off the back of the field or stopping on lap 2. So no, it's a pity, obviously, reliability-wise. I think the problem was, I don't think we've broken anything, but it was there was something wrong, so it could have gone that way. So that's the reason why we stopped. They were telling me to do switch changes and everything, and then they called me in the end because they hadn't made the difference.
I guess the frustration is compounded by the fact that you were kind of hoping for data gathering at the very least this weekend, and you weren't even able to get that.
We weren't going to get that anyway, even if I kept running, because I was on the old kit anyway, so Fernando had all the new stuff, which obviously are in the bin now. Yeah, it's been a pretty bad weekend for all of us, and the good thing is we won't let it get us down. You know, it's always difficult, especially when we do interviews about it, because you know it's really tricky because we're asked difficult questions, and you got to be positive still, because you know people at the factory watch these interviews, and we've got to keep everyone positive, and if we don't, it will stay like this. So we've got to keep everyone G'd up, and I know that they're all in a good place at the moment because they know what this can be. But it's a very difficult time at the moment, so hopefully they're staying strong. We're doing all we can to stay strong, and hopefully Silverstone Home Grand Prix will be a much more positive weekend.
Well, I've not won the lottery yet. I'll keep buying a ticket and I hope that I will one day, but you almost get the feeling, Martin, my chances of hitting the jackpot are about as much as Jenson Button's of having a car by the end of the season that he can go and be competitive in.
Yeah, it's worrying. It's worrying whether they know what to do, and if they can, have they got the facility within the regulations, have they got the time to do it, how quickly will it take them, but how quickly is Rosberg going? He's now 4 seconds ahead of Hamilton, who did a 1:13.3, suggesting he's not happy with those tyres at all, but he needs to get a few laps further into the race if he can, doesn't he? But we've seen Grosjean now. Here we go.
There goes Hülkenberg and Bottas wheel to wheel. Bottas has decided, I fancy another little overtake move, and he's doing all the overtaking this afternoon. Valtteri Bottas puts himself up into 5th. Big puff of dust coming from the front right of the Williams as he applies the brakes into turn 5. And another good move from the Finnish driver. And after an early fallback from 6th on the grid, he's moved up a couple of places now.
He told us he'd get feisty when he had to, didn't he?
doesn't get rattled.
So around the outside of turn 3 this time.
Little lock up, but felt he had the grip. Nicely controlled.
He's probably saying, I hope you enjoyed Le Mans, Nico. Try a little bit of this. Look at that graining on the right front there of the Mercedes of Nico Rosberg. So the tyres taking a little bit of punishment.
Now, we've seen Romain Grosjean pit and Force India not respond with Sergio Perez because he's on the soft compound tyre and they're going to run him that much longer. Now we see Hulkenberg pitting, obviously coming to the end of the life of those super soft tyres for him. But where is he going to come out here? Ahead of the Red Bull? Yes.
He's desperate to stay ahead of that Red Bull. Tyres are out of the blankets, of course, so he should be able to get up and get on. Once he got passed by Hulkenberg, it was the best thing they could do, by Bottas, it was the best thing they could do. One of the best paid spectators in the paddock. Sadly for us, sadly for Kimi Räikkönen.
Now Carlos Sainz had a slow pit stop here. And they wanted that jack to stay in place because the front left wasn't on properly.
Got a big feature coming up at Silverstone on the pit stop. Force India have given us a lot of information. Really look inside those stops.
Well, we see there. Felipe Nasser, and this could get nice and feisty, these two, as Grosjean goes round the inside. Nasser isn't going to give this up. Finally he has to. That was lovely to watch, it really was. Grosjean moves up to 12th place. Ted.
Very close call in the pit lane between Bottas, who was coming out of his pit stop, and Max Verstappen coming in for Toro Rosso. I'm sure we'll get a replay. That was, I don't think Verstappen had to brake to avoid the Williams, but that was as close as I've seen.
And coming out of the pits there, Valtteri Bottas and Nico Hulkenberg. Oh, they almost touched, didn't they? On the straight going into turn 2, Hulkenberg ahead of Bottas after making their pit stops. This the battle for 7th and for 8th. Now he's already passed Hulkenberg round the outside at turn 3. And I just wonder if he's going to get the chance. No, he might be a bit too far behind. He's looking for it, is Bottas. And on this occasion, Hulkenberg has him covered off.
So the undercut does work. Hulkenberg stopping slightly earlier. Looks like Carlos Sainz is under investigation for speeding in the pit lane. That is normally a slam dunk, as Bottas struggling to control the Williams there in the turbulent air. And we're about to see what Ted was talking about.
Yep, there goes Bottas. Unsafe or not?
Verstappen did have to, that's the problem you've got when the team that's pitting is behind with your back to you in the pit lane. In other words, they stop after you do in the pit lane. Ted, what do you think?
I don't think, I was watching it and I didn't see Verstappen brake, so I think Williams will get away with that.
Me too.
He'd have been running at 80 kilometres an hour on the pit lane limiter. I tend to agree with the pair of you. I also think that they knew it was going to be tight, Williams, here. Hulkenberg had performed the undercut after just being overtaken by Valtteri Bottas, and they knew they had to get him in at that moment.
There's lockups on the inside of slow corners like that. When your inside tyre, there's a roll moment in the car and the inside tyre is unloaded. They're not good, but it's nothing like when you lock them up in a straight line approaching the corner. When you're just heading into the apex, you can kind of get away with it. Just slowly but surely damages your tyre if you do it too often. Again, a lot of brake dust coming off the right front of Valtteri Bottas in a corner that's not exactly heavy on the brakes. In fact, it's not heavy at all.
No. Watching here, Danny Kvyat currently running in 10th place ahead of Max Verstappen. Both of these drivers having stopped. Kvyat stopping very early on indeed behind the safety car, but with bodywork damage after a first lap incident. And Carlos Sainz, as we continue to look at this battle, has got a 5-second time penalty for speeding in the pit lane. Now, assuming that he's not coming in for another pit stop, and it should now be a one-stop race, and that'll be 5 seconds added to his race time at the checkered flag. More on that later. Back to the battle here. Kvyat and Verstappen. Current Toro Rosso against former Toro Rosso. He's coming for you, Kvyat. Where's he going to go? Verstappen here switches now to try and find a line on the inside, almost touching the rear of that Red Bull as he gets away and under power. Now he's going to look to the outside down at turn 3, and he's got himself ahead as Verstappen brakes a little bit later than Kvyat and makes the move up into 10th place in the points.
Yeah, DRS, new tyres versus old tyres, and frankly a faster car as well, and being sister teams. And he didn't.
Verstappen had made his mind up where he was going. Kvyat saw him coming.
But I'd almost argue he let him through.
And there is your race leader, Nico Rosberg. 3.2 seconds the gap now. Hamilton's just taken 3/10 out on the previous lap. And the Mercedes at the moment well clear of Sebastian Vettel in 3rd.
Hamilton's front tyres look better than Rosberg's front tyres at this phase of the Grand Prix.
So expecting his teammate to come in ahead, is Hamilton thinking, well, the best way to close this gap is to wait until he does. I'm clear of the man in 3rd place, and then I can maybe put in 2 or 3 laps where I'm not going to overtake my teammate during the pit stops, but I can get a lot closer to him. I wonder. Felipe Massa runs in 4th at the moment, some 5 seconds behind Sebastian Vettel, but a long way clear of Sergio Perez, who's currently running in 5th place. Then Pastor Maldonado running in 6th, and behind them come those that have stopped. Hulkenberg and Bottas. Ricciardo, who hasn't yet pitted, runs 9th. Verstappen, Kvyat, Grosjean, Nasser and Sainz have all been into the pits. Roberto Merri as yet hasn't. He's been lapped along with Marcus Ericsson. He's been into the pits twice, once for a drive-through penalty.
Short lap here, of course, just 72 seconds at the moment, so that means a lot of drivers are going to get lapped this afternoon. Most of the field.
Yeah, and out in front we see Hamilton now starting to reduce the gap that little bit further by maybe another 0.3 of a second. On board with Romain Grosjean, he's behind Danny Kvyat. Senses an opening down the inside. Grosjean's going to go for it. Lock up from
failure or something. No power, no power.
Lock up from Kvyat, whilst Carlos Sainz having major problems with his car. Grosjean gets through and up into 11th place. Kvyat's lost 2 places within the space of 1 lap.
And they are not DRS assisted passes into there.
Yeah, very true.
Different age of tyres, it must be said.
Now, 1 Ferrari car running in this race. When are they going to be called on for a pit stop? Textbook move.
Yeah, Kvyat pretty submissive. Hasn't got the speed.
No, not today. Sergio Perez now has Pastor Maldonado gaining on him somewhat. Canada, Maldonado's best race since Abu Dhabi in 2012, comes in with much more confidence.
Yeah, we need to remember Kvyat has also got some damage on his car. He was told about that. He has pitted once. It was the end of the first lap when he came in to repair that damage. So he's a little bit walking wounded, we need to remember.
Ted, down to you.
Quick line on, have we got Mercedes coming into the pits?
Hang on.
Mercedes.
So 1 more lap, go strapped 7, push hard now.
Yes, we have.
Okay, Grosjean's strategy, stopping a bit early, has worked out nicely. I think he's set for some good points, 5th or 6th, something like that.
Yep, assuming the tyres hold up, Ted.
Yeah.
I think you're right on that one. He's got a decent pace at the moment, but having to fight his way through the traffic, and we saw him do that just a few moments ago. Nico Rosberg definitely coming in. I can see the mechanics waiting.
Okay, Lewis, time to start picking up the pace. It won't be long.
Hamilton will have to wait for his turn in the pits, but as Pete Bonington, his engineer, says, now's the time to start picking up the pace, because you can go a bit faster and you won't be affected by any turbulent air whatsoever for your teammate out in front of you. 2.2 seconds was the gap at the end of lap 32. So what about this lap?
Horrible understeer developing, front sliding across the track for Nico Rosberg. The front tyres, he'll be very pleased, I think, to get rid of those tyres, frankly. He's really beginning to struggle.
Yeah, look, and he's locking up as he applies the brakes to come into the pits. Hamilton had gained something like 7 or 8 tenths of a second on Rosberg in the middle sector of lap 32. So that 2.2 second gap has suddenly been reduced a little bit. Decent pit stop for Rosberg. He can now come back out into the race, but I wonder if Hamilton keeps on pushing here, Martin. Is there an opening after that last lap of Rosberg's to not only just get closer, but close enough to mount a challenge again?
I think if he wants to win this race, Lewis Hamilton's going to have to pass Rosberg on track in racing speed combat. I don't think he'll be in the pits.
Let's have a little look once again as Rosberg came into the pits, having to keep to the right side of that white line all the way through before turn 8. Did he just get onto the grass a little bit? That's why he locked up.
Yeah, he did. I think he got a little bit tight on the right-hander there. Started heading, I mean, he's discarding those tyres, so of course it doesn't matter that much, but be interested to know what speed he was doing when he went across that line.
Just
probably got it under control by the looks of it.
You hope for his sake it wasn't 81 kilometres an hour, because then Ted, he too would get a 5-second time penalty for speeding in the pit lane.
Yeah, Hamilton's engineers told him that it's strategy 9 and full deployment. So that must be about the ERS. So he hasn't declared it officially hammer time at the moment, Crofty. So, well, what can Lewis do? I just tend to agree with you, Martin. I think they're not pitting Lewis immediately. So Hamilton has got an opportunity now on tyres that are getting pretty worn. So that's not much of a chance, is it? As Felipe Massa comes into the pits.
He needs to worry more about Vettel than Rosberg, I think, Ted, to be honest. Yeah. I mean, Rosberg's now fastest man in the final sector of the lap on his out lap. And he's fully up to speed on those. So I can't see Lewis pulling that. What he will do is have fresher tyres towards the end of the Grand Prix.
I think that's what they're thinking for sure, because there's no sign of them bringing Lewis in at the moment.
He's just put in a 1:12.5 for his last lap. Vettel put in a 1:12.8, just to let you know. And Rosberg, obviously, with his pit stop, might have been on a par with that, as we see Pastor Maldonado cutting in front there of the Force India, and then Valtteri Bottas almost collecting Hulkenberg as well as Hamilton now comes in. Now his teammate Nico Rosberg is on the straight coming towards turn 8 in the penultimate corner now as Hamilton stops. Rosberg now making his way around the comes. You'll see him in a moment as Hamilton makes his way with a slightly slower pit stop as well. Here comes Rosberg. Hamilton can now get going, and the margin that was 2.2 seconds before we started getting into this round of pit stops now becomes maybe about the same, Martin, after a 0.4 of a second longer pit stop for Hamilton than Rosberg.
Yeah, and Rosberg just done a 1:11.2 as well for good measure. So yeah, if he wants to win this Grand Prix, he's got to be on track.
There's a problem with the gearbox.
Yeah, and it's caused Romain Grosjean to go off the track just before turn 6. Back on again, but
can't
sounds
shift.
Pretty horrible.
Stuck in third gear, can't shift.
Maldonado under pressure from Valtteri Bottas. You can see there Sergio Perez from Maldonado, from Bottas, and then Hulkenberg in this little scrap as well. Bottas has got himself back ahead of Nico Hulkenberg. They've been swapping places throughout this race. And this is the battle for 5th, 6th, 7th and 8th.
Good racing out there, but of course Perez and Maldonado have yet to stop. They started the race on these tyres.
Into the pits comes Sebastian Vettel. Also into the pits, Romain Grosjean as well. His race seemingly ruined here by that gearbox problem. Ted, down to you.
And it's slow, it's another slow pit stop for Ferrari.
Yeah.
What on earth is going on now? It's the right rear. It's the right rear, and Sebastian Vettel is just playing with the throttle as he wants to go. I thought I saw something. I said he might have a little issue down here, and once again. I mean, it's not going to make any difference to his race, is it? Because he's got a very lonely race.
Well, Ted,
he's third place.
He's got a lonely race, but he's now lost out on the podium positions, I think, as well, because Felipe Massa has gone through and ahead of Sebastian Vettel. He was in the pits for longer than he would have wanted. Certainly, Massa now goes ahead of Sebastian Vettel and into third place. And here comes Valtteri Bottas on Pastor Maldonado into turn 2. Not quite going to make it there. What you did see, Martin Brundle, from the overhead shot of the pit stop, Vettel had gone a bit long, wasn't properly on his marks. Bottas going for it once again. Maldonado is his next target. Getting a lot of overtaking done today is Bottas, and he moves himself up into 6th place before he really gets to turn 3 and now can get after chasing after Sergio Perez.
Hamilton under investigation for crossing the line at the pit exit. Now that normally is also a slam dunk as well, because they look at that for factual reasons, something they've seen on the TV. It's one of the fundamental basics of not breaking the rules. Let's see what this my concern is for this is there was an element of, well, I think it's on, send it.
Something wrong with the wheel gun there. The wheel tightened. And that is Carlos Sainz out of this race as well, joining Button, Stevens, Raikkonen and Alonso in retiring from this race. Grosjean still in the pits.
So Hamilton did cross the white line on the exit. That's to stop you steaming into the racetrack while there's a fight coming through. It's all about safety. They're told to strictly adhere to that, especially on the way into the pits here. Grosjean's managed to get it down to 2nd gear, now neutral, but
he's out as well.
Box full of neutrals, it seems. He's going no further.
Yep, and Rosberg's outlap 7/10 quicker than Lewis Hamilton's as well, as he extends his lead out in front, and Hamilton is getting a 5-second time penalty.
Which is going to cost him nothing, basically. After Vettel's awful stop and the advantage they've got over Massa, it means he can't really win the race.
And this is why there.
Guilty as charged.
Distracted for a moment, carelessness for a moment.
It got away from him a little bit, and also look at the line there curving in towards, but they know that they've been out of the pits enough times. So it's rather a shame, because, you know, will Hamilton want to use his engine up to try and catch that 5.3 seconds back he's behind and find another 5 seconds over and above that?
Well, it's the second race of his second power unit of the season, so he's probably got a little bit of time in hand should he wants to. And this is Bottas ahead of Hülkenberg as Sergio Perez stops. While we were looking at the replay of Lewis Hamilton and Perez after his pit stop, now down into 12th place, leaves Ricciardo as the only man out on track, currently running in 8th, that hasn't pitted yet. He's just lost that 8th place to Max Verstappen as well. So it's a 5.4 second gap out in front. Hamilton needs to win this race, has to overtake his teammate and then finish at least 5.001 seconds ahead of Nico Rosberg. Bottas with Hülkenberg now chasing him. Needs to have been fairly closely matched throughout this race. Positions changing and fluctuating, and Sebastian Vettel's slow pit stop allowing Felipe Massa the chance to move into the podium places. Now 3rd for Williams. Vettel running in 4th. There comes Pastor Maldonado, and closing up on Felipe Massa in the Sauber as they make the run towards turn 2, getting into the slipstream of the Sauber. Pulls out now. Has Danny Kvyat just ahead of them? Has Maldonado got ahead here as they make the way? Right turn. He's wheel to wheel with Nasser. Gets much better traction and gets a decent tow as well, I think, behind Kvyat to try and keep him out in front. Kvyat moves to one side as Maldonado now looking at 9th place, moves past the Red Bull. Kvyat does very well to defend though against Felipe Nasser, but for how much longer can he do that on the run towards turn 5 and 6? Nasser swaps to the inside, locks up a little bit, but Kvyat's now lost 2 places as Nasser makes the move himself and moves into 10th.
He's had a stellar weekend. I feel a bit guilty. We haven't talked more about Fred Nasser in that Sauber. Got it into the top 10 and absolutely driving a beautiful race as well. And I think he's been every much a bit of a star this year as Verstappen and Sainz, frankly. He had a clumsy old Canadian Grand Prix, didn't he, Nasser? Yep. But otherwise, it's been good.
Okay, Lewis, we have a penalty for crossing the white line on exit. It's just a 5-second penalty. This will be added to our race time, so that means that we need to be 5 seconds ahead of the car behind to maintain our position.
Which one did I touch?
It was pit exit. Pit exit, we are reviewing.
Explanation then to Lewis Hamilton. He's currently running a bit of a lonely position. 2nd place for him, nearly 6 seconds behind his teammate and about 17 seconds ahead of Felipe Massa, and that's why he's getting a 5-second penalty. The white line has to be avoided and the car must be to the right of it.
Yeah, the tail was wagging a bit as he got on the throttle, and unfortunately there's no arguing with that, and those lines are there to stop you, as I said, steaming straight out onto the racetrack and into the middle of a squabble that's going somewhat fast. Now there are tracks like Monza and others where that's absolutely critical to know. Slightly less so here, I have to say, on that particular pit exit, but rules is rules.
And they're all given to the drivers and to the teams at the start of every race weekend. Ted, we can go down to you.
I'm down at Ferrari, Crofty, where it's not a particularly happy place at the moment because another problem in a pit stop with these very tight threads on their wheels, and it's only about 3 or 4 turns of the wheel nut, and the wheel is meant to be tight. They do believe it was not a wheel gun problem, it was more that it was cross-threaded, and so that's why they were trying to get it off and get it on again to get the wheel properly seated. They think that there is inherent pace in the car. They should be quicker than Williams on paper, but it's going to be very difficult for them to close and then overtake Felipe Massa, but Sebastian Vettel's going to give it a go. But what do you think about their pace, Martin, earlier? I know you thought it was disappointing. I was having a look at it. They were losing out to Mercedes in Sector 1, but matching them in Sector 2 was Vettel. But it was just such a bad time loss in Sector 1 and Sector 3. He did fall that, what was it, 12, 13 seconds behind?
Yeah.
Before the disastrous pit stop?
He was a lot closer to the Williams than he was the Mercedes, basically, wasn't he?
Just so disappointing that the race pace wasn't translated from their Friday showings.
Well, let's see if he can chase after Felipe Massa. The gap is 4 seconds. As we just look at Kvyat and Perez, and on much fresher tyres, Sergio Perez makes that very, very easily indeed. Perez puts himself now into 11th place. Kvyat will try and fight it back a little bit. He's not totally giving up, but as that straight goes on and on, the advantage Perez has gets longer and longer. So we have
it out there, doesn't he?
Yeah, he certainly does. 14 cars, Martin, running in this race. Roberto Merri, lapped twice, is last of them all. We've lost Grosjean and Sainz, Button, Stevens, Alonso and Raikkonen from this race. The stewards are going to be looking at that first lap incident between Raikkonen and Alonso after the race, and what Raikkonen's view is of it. Let's hear from him now.
Well, Kimi, that was a scary moment for everyone. Are you okay?
Yeah.
No medical issues at all. That's good news. Now, you seem to be struggling for traction on the primes. Is that what happened? Did you lose the control of the rear of the car?
Well, I don't know. I got some wheel spin and then suddenly just went left. So it was a bit unusual place because it was a bit higher speed. So hard to say really. Obviously the end result is what it is. So pretty poor weekend, but that's how it goes.
I was going to say you want to draw a line under this weekend and move forward to Silverstone. Is that how you feel? That you just want to forget about this weekend altogether?
You're never gonna forget it, but one of those things that obviously not ideal.
Thank you.
No mention that Fernando Alonso caught him, got wheel spin.
Yeah, he's basically saying he dropped the back end of the car.
If that's the case, the stewards look at it and say it's a racing incident, or look at it and say, well, you should have kept better control.
I think they have a different view on the first lap of a Grand Prix. They know everything's not up to optimum temperature. They know it's wheel to wheel and more difficult. So they take a more liberal view, shall we say, on a start or a restart. It would be my understanding. I don't think there'll be any penalties from that. And interesting because it snapped, didn't it? I mean, the back end was moving, but then it snapped. And that's when he obviously hoovered up Fernando Alonso on his way to the scene of the accident.
Now we're watching the battle for 10th between Nasser and Perez here, lap 45 of this Austrian Grand Prix.
The debris has been dislodged, so aero balance should be back to normal.
Maybe had some marbles stuck in the slots on the front wing.
Yeah, well, they've got very slippery paint, haven't they? Sort of Teflon paint they put on all the leading edges of those many elements of their front wings, Mercedes. You can see it's like a dull grey stuff that even under braking into a pit stop makes the rubber fall out of those slot gaps that affects the performance of the wing. I'm surprised you don't see more of it, actually. It's very clever stuff.
And Felipe Nasser under pressure from Sergio Perez, as you can see. Perez on the fresher tyres and gaining on the Sauber. And talking of gaining, Sebastian Vettel gaining on Felipe Massa, Martin, which is going to worry Felipe Massa in his Williams in a minute. But both of them, are they starting to gain a little bit on Hamilton in second place?
I think Lewis has turned it down, hasn't he? All he's got to do is 15 seconds behind him. He's got to pace them, but I think more significantly, it's just Rosberg's had the better race car.
Yeah.
Better race pace.
As into the pits finally comes Daniel Ricciardo, or it should be Daniel Ricciardo. No, it's... Ricciardo stays out in this race on soft compound tyres. He's Nasser at the top of the hill.
Braking. Understood.
Yeah, much better braking for Perez, and under braking he manages to control the Force India, move it into the right racing line for his liking, and he is up now into 10th place, so Perez back in the points again.
Yeah, looks like another handy day for Force India. What else is going on? Best scrap at the moment. Hulkenberg's just starting to come back to Bottas a little bit. There's 2.1 seconds there. The gap. Vettel still edging his way towards Felipe Massa as well for the final podium spot. And Perez and Nasser, well, we saw how that one worked out.
Ericsson comes into the pits again. Hulkenberg's probably thinking, what, we're an hour and 5 minutes into this race. That's time to get going now. You know, I'm used to this. I'm all ready for 24 hours of racing. And this is where I get going. Congratulations to him once again, along with Earl Bamber and Nick Tandy, of course, for their fabulous Le Mans win this time last week.
Fastest man out on track at the moment, Sebastian Vettel in 4th place.
Catching Massa. Gap was 3 seconds, now 2.7 seconds. Felipe Massa behind Danny Kvyat, so we'll get some blue flags waved at him in a moment.
Yeah,
right now.
That's what Massa was doing there, trying to make himself very well known. I don't think he was tyre warming, he was just trying to make himself very clear in the mirrors. He knows every 10th is going to count in this fight for that podium position.
And so, out in front then, Rosberg has a 7-second lead from Lewis Hamilton. Rosberg, who of course won the Austrian Grand Prix this time last year, one of 10 wins in Formula One, and he made his debut as a 20-year-old, didn't he, in 2006 in Bahrain. This race is last as a 20-something, turns 30 next week. Does Nico Rosberg over the the weekend of the Goodwood Festival of Speed, where I think he's going to be coming down, and we'll be there broadcasting on the Sunday afternoon as well on Sky Sports. Looking forward to that. Always one of the highlights of the year, but Rosberg seemingly at the moment, Martin, about to end his 20s with a perfect present.
Hamilton half-second faster on that lap, but I don't think we can get too excited about that, sadly. He's a net 11.5 seconds behind his teammate with that penalty. I mean, you can say, oh, well, more rules, more penalties, but you can't, you can't have a ball over the goal line, can you? And go, well, I don't think that's a goal, actually. You've got to be you've got to define the racetrack.
Well, the key with this one, as you pointed out, it's for safety reasons. It's so you're not joining the scene of an accident.
Yeah, well, it'd be an airplane crash if you just were allowed to come straight out of the pit, straight onto the racing line.
Yeah, the one rule has got to stick for everybody. This man, Sebastian Vettel, as he threads his way through a few of the back markers, still behind Danik Fiat, but it is, I think, significantly starting to catch Felipe Massa. 2.4 seconds the gap was down to at the end of lap 49. And after the slow pit stop, trying to fight his way back in to another podium.
Ricciardo, the only man who hasn't stopped then and been in the pits in the field so far, getting greedy on the inside of the corner, and he works out a treat. Has he got enough traction? Has he got enough power? He's certainly got track position.
This is a super drive, this, from Daniel Ricciardo. He's down in 8th place at the moment.
I think that explains why they were so slow in the early part of the race as well. They were just coasting on these tyres.
Trying to make them last. He'll be on the super soft tyres at the end of the race, and much fresher tyres as well. Will that, though, be enough to get him into the points from a grid spot of 18th and a 5-second wait, remember, at his pit stop when it comes. There goes Maldonado, this time tries around the outside. Daniel Ricciardo has him covered off. Now, this is where you would expect the Mercedes-powered Lotus to be able to get this move done. Ricciardo is a bit of a sitting duck, it has to be said, on that long straight, and Maldonado pulls to over a car length ahead by the time they hit that braking zone at the top of the hill, and he does, the Venezuelan, move himself up into 8th place. Ted, down to you.
Crofty, I've been down to the Williams garage. Fingers are being crossed and toes and fingernails are being bitten at the same time, because they're all very nervous about closing Sebastian Vettel, as we see it's a replay, isn't it, the Lotus and the Red Bull. They know the Ferrari's just got a little bit of an edge on them on lap time over them at the moment on pure race pace. But Felipe Massa, team radio, sorry, Crofty, I wasn't told about that.
No, I think that was a well done, Pastor.
Right, okay, good. So they're telling me that Felipe is going to make it very, very difficult for Ferrari, for Sebastian Vettel, once he gets up behind him. I wonder if they'll run out of laps or whether Sebastian will have the tyres at the end. But it's personal for Massa in a way, isn't it?
Well, he's not in a position, Ted, where he has to move aside for a Ferrari these days.
Indeed not, and it's absolutely crucial for Williams, who are about to pick up a bagload of points on their fight for Ferrari in the Constructors.
Ricciardo waits 5 seconds before they can make the tyre change, courtesy of that engine change penalty system. Couldn't serve his full 10 places on the grid, so got a 5-second penalty at the start of his pit stop. That's why it took 9 seconds in total, and he comes out onto the racetrack. Well, Marcus Ericsson has been lapped twice, and Felipe Massa is the next car behind him, Ricciardo in 11th place. The key here is with Felipe Massa on the back straight at the moment. Has Ricciardo got the extra grip and the extra grunts in that Renault engine to chase him down and try and get into the points? And I think, Martin, if he could get into the points today, that would be a huge boost for a man who looks a bit out of sorts in Canada.
He did, but, you know, man, he won 3 races last year. Now he's struggling to steal a 1 or 2 points if he's lucky. But there you go, that's what he faces. He certainly, you know, he got 50 laps on a set of boots, so whether there's any point in that, we'll find out over the next 20 laps.
We watch Ricciardo and Ericsson. Out towards the final corner they come as the track kind of scythes its way through the forest at that stage. An absolutely glorious location is the Red Bull Ring here in Spielberg on a summer Sunday afternoon in the sunshine. It's rather the odd cloud, Martin. The sun is attempting to get through. Lots of forecasts of rain, but those hills in the distance and the mountains beyond them tend to form a little barrier when the rain and the snow is coming in from the north, and they stop it hitting the track.
Massa's job now is to wake up the back markers, Ericsson and Ricciardo, and that'll be clearing the path to an extent for the man following him. He gets a bit of DRS assistance here, but Massa, with two cars in front of him, he needs to clear very quickly indeed.
Well, there's one of them.
Indeed, it is.
2 seconds the gap between Massa and Vettel. You can see it's just been coming down bit by bit over the last few laps. And as Ted said, this is going to get personal for Felipe Massa here. The last thing he would want would be to lose out a podium to the former team and he had so many years of success with, but eventually had to play the number 2 in.
The camera doesn't show you how much that turn 8 drops away.
In terms of fuel usage, Massa using slightly less. So no suggestions that any driver is going to be having to save fuel in the closing stages. You had the safety car period after Raikkonen and Alonso's accident that enabled all the teams, just to turn the engine down a bit, conserve a bit of fuel, so that shouldn't be an issue. Raikkonen and Alonso, along with Stevens and Button, Sainz and Grosjean, the drivers that have retired from this race. Meanwhile, Lewis Hamilton, who we haven't seen for a while, taking a bit too much curb there. Into the final corner. His teammate yesterday, of course, went off, trying to chase pole position that, when he made it through that final corner, would more than likely have been his. And he went off. Hamilton had already spun. Mercedes locked out the front row. Hamilton started on pole, but positions reversed at the moment on lap 55, with Rosberg enjoying a 6.2 second advantage, a further 16 seconds back to Felipe Massa. So Hamilton, who crossed that white line at the exit of the pits after his pit stop, gets a 5-second penalty added to his race time, still very much in second place. He'll have to lose another 4 seconds or so to Felipe Massa to be robbed of second place.
Vettel's tyres just 2 laps younger, but he had a 13-second stop compared to Massa's 3.9 behind him. So this could get a little fruity, I think, towards the end.
It's all coming down to the last sort of 5 or 6 laps maybe, where Massa's going to have Vettel right on his tail. Now they've picked their way through the back markers. Well, they have for the time being, because Daniel Ricciardo's next on the road.
Yeah, Ricciardo's got a great chance here of catching at least Perez, I would say, in 9th place, and maybe others.
Yeah. He's lapping in the 111s, those ahead of him are the 113s or the 112s.
Yeah.
So the helicopter makes another fly past. Give us some more brilliant aerial footage. Near enough to ground level. Sebastian Vettel.
Bad lap for Vettel there. I know he's... did he pass Ericsson and Kvyat on that?
You know, he's actually reduced the gap on that one. It's the lap.
Through the traffic, wasn't it? It was an 11.7. You're right, as it crosses the line.
2-second gap now, Martin. That has come down to not just finger crossing time, but anxious faces time. At Williams for Sir Frank Williams and his daughter Claire, the deputy team principal. I'm sure for Patrick Head, Sir Patrick Head, watching wherever he's watching this afternoon, an anxious face too, and congratulations on his knighthood and the Queen's birthday honours, richly deserved for his services to motor racing and a Formula One over the years.
Absolutely. Oh, Felipe's on it, isn't he? Stepping the back end out on the Williams. Letting the tour, and so is, this is for real. The safety car took away any fuel worries early on, so this is all they've got now.
The thing is, he was on it, Felipe Massa, and pushing as hard as he could, set his best middle sector of the race so far. This man was still 2/10 faster. But I wonder, is that Ferrari fast enough in a straight line to be able to stay close enough so that under braking you can try and make the move on the Williams? That will be what's concerning Felipe Massa and what he's thinking about.
They might just answer that question for you, David, later on, I reckon.
I'd like to see a few answers on a Sunday afternoon.
Massa 2/10 up in the first sector, suggesting he's got plenty of straight line speed. There's only one corner in the first sector.
And this is where the track steeply drops away from the drivers. Valtteri Bottas. We've seen that throughout the afternoon, haven't we? That brake dust.
The worrying thing is it's just the right front, it's not both fronts.
You've got 2 left corners, 7 right here. I'm not sure if it's the right brake that's taking more of the punishment. It was the same on Massa's car, I think, as well, and the Force Indias. A bit of brake dust coming from them. Okay.
Yeah, we've got a proper duel going on here now.
Well, we have. It's come down by a 10th, tantalising 10th of a second. It's not 2 seconds now, it's 1.9 between Felipe Massa and Sebastian Vettel. Ted, down to you. Nope, Ted's not there now. We'll get down to Ted in the pit lane in a few moments.
Don't leave us, Ted.
I'm here.
Excellent.
I'm here all along. Somebody's fallen asleep somewhere. Just the interesting discussion going on at Red Bull. They still think they've got a chance of some points. They think they can get past Nasser. I think they've probably got the pace to do it. But radio message to Fiat saying, listen, keep pushing. We believe that Ricciardo will be P10 at the end of the race past Nasser's Sauber, but I don't know, is there any chance of doing that? What are the lap times? I haven't got lap times down here.
He'll get Nasser easily.
Okay.
He might get Perez.
Wow, okay. But interesting how that Fiat strategy worked out, didn't it, Crofty? He couldn't do the whole race. We kind of knew he couldn't do. But has maximised his time on the super soft tyre in this latter stage of the race.
Were it not for the bodywork damage, then I think he would have enjoyed a much better race. And they took the gamble, Red Bull, for a free pit stop and had to change the front nose anyway. They hadn't really lost by it.
We think we have more life in this tyre. You can push to the end.
And might need to if Ricciardo is chasing you. And by the way, Ricciardo is now less than 3 seconds behind Felipe Massa in that 10th points place. Red Bull, of course, who came into Austria last year and had a pretty bad time of it. Well, I'm not sure they would even think about celebrating 1 point at their home track and a weekend where they've been, I suppose, quite keen to stress just how disadvantaged that team is by the horsepower situation with their engine this weekend. On board with Lewis Hamilton, the gap 6.3 seconds. The gap he's worried about more is the gap to Felipe Massa and or Sebastian Vettel, whichever of those two now finishes third. As you add 5 seconds to the advantage, or to Hamilton's race time, he's still within Felipe Massa or Sebastian Vettel, still running in second place when that penalty is applied.
I think they've called it a bit of a day at the front because they're not quite as quick on the last few laps as Massa and Vettel. It's nip and tuck, it has to be said, but they're all sort of just into the 1-minute 11s.
And the gap would reduce to 10 points then at the top of the championship, going into the British Grand Prix at Silverstone this time in 2 weeks. Very much looking forward to seeing as many British fans at the track as could possibly make it. Fingers crossed it's another sellout. They've reduced the ticket prices to celebrate Lewis Hamilton's car number by 44%. Not sure if you can still get in on that deal, but if you do want to go, there are a few more tickets available.
So this is for P10 shaping up then. Nasser, Ricciardo, and Perez is another 9 seconds up the road. But the problem they've got is Massa and Vettel are coming up behind them. They might just have to get out of it with the blue flags.
Which is why Ricciardo would quite like to get this done as soon as he possibly can. There's Felipe Massa, there's Sebastian Vettel. They're gaining, but Ricciardo with really good exit, fresher tyres, better grip out of turn 1, gaining now on Nasser. Not gaining enough to get past into turn 2. The trouble is, by the time they get to turn 3, how close is Felipe Massa going to be to either of these two cars? Not enough, so that both Ricciardo and Nasser have to keep out of the way. Ricciardo goes down the inside, has easily enough grip to make that happen, but then runs just that little bit wide, and then allows Felipe Nasser the chance to find him back again. Left-hand turn into the next corner, and Ricciardo's got that inside line, and he is back into the points. 10th place now for the Australian.
Yeah, he needs to pick up enough pace, see if he can stay ahead of these two that are fighting for the podium, but they're on it. They're absolutely on it.
They certainly are. Meanwhile, Pastor Maldonado, the one remaining Lotus still running, has Max Verstappen right in front of him. And this is the battle for 7th and for 8th. And we've seen what Verstappen's like at overtaking now. We're going to see him put in a bit of defending here. Maldonado's just kind of crept up on him in the last few laps.
What's his name? Verstappen 13.0, Maldonado 1:12.2. Verstappen pitted on lap 26.
And Maldonado, when did he pit?
Maldonado 37.
Yeah. I wonder if those tyres are starting to just to head off the cliff a little bit for Verstappen. Let's see how and if he can defend into turn 1 here. So along the main straight we go, completing 61 laps for both of these two. Maldonado just tucks in behind. No DRS assistance on this long straight here, but he'll easily be within 1 second through the detection zone. That detection zone is right now. Maldonado eases up on Verstappen, but now we'll have the drag reduction system boost. Verstappen got out of that corner quite nicely, it looked from this camera angle, staying ahead of Maldonado here and staying ahead quite comfortably going into turn 3.
They really pull the downshifts early, don't they? I've noticed that increasingly so, but they really seem to go for those downshifts fast and early.
While we're watching this, Felipe Massa is now only a second clear of Sebastian Vettel. He's got to within a second, has the 4-time world champion. Ted, very briefly down to you.
Yeah, this fight for the last podium position, I've been watching it very carefully. The gap was 2 seconds, then it was 1.7. Now it's 1 second from Vettel. Is closing on Felipe Massa. Will he run out of laps? What are we, lap 62 gone? No. So it's going to be so tight at the end of the race, this for the last podium position.
And for what would be his 6th podium as a Ferrari driver, Sebastian Vettel. 72nd podium in total if he can get past the Williams of Felipe Massa. And it's down to 0.8 of a second, the gap, as they complete 63 laps.
Be interesting to see how Verstappen handles this in terms of the pressure, but such is the pace of the leaders, even though they're not really fighting too hard now. They're about to lap 8th place man Maldonado, and of course Verstappen shortly after that.
I have very bad vibrations. Very bad vibrations.
and lapping a second a lap slower than the man behind him at the moment, who is Daniel Ricciardo. Sergio Perez currently in 9th place. So where is Sebastian Vettel enjoying himself in this battle with Felipe Massa? Where is he making the gains? Through sector 1 of this circuit, the first third, absolute level pegging, but through here the Ferrari just seems to flow a lot better, Martin.
Yeah, despite the turbulent air coming off the back of that Williams, there's a sling it in, hope you can keep it in balance. And this is a really technical corner to drive. That's nice, very nice.
Down towards turn 1 they run. DRS assisted, of course, Sebastian Vettel, but the gap remains at 0.8 of a second.
Good on the brakes, the Ferrari though, very good on the brakes.
We're not getting a battle for the lead of this race. For the final podium place could go down to the very final lap at this race. As we watch Maldonado once again behind Verstappen, just going a little bit deep and
got up on that banana curve, didn't he? And it was as slippery as a banana up there.
Good save for Pastor Maldonado, who's on for a second successive points finish. He's only managed once in his career, back in 2012 in Abu Dhabi and Austin. Something about tracks that begin with A then that he quite likes. On for a second consecutive points finish here in Austria this afternoon.
If you're wondering if Maldonado will take a penalty for crossing the pit lane exit line, no, he came at it from the wrong side. That could have been a big accident. We've seen Maldonado have accidents from that kind of position, but just well held, as you said. Now this is getting ever closer.
Now, in the qualifying speed trap, they're both using DRS, of course. Massa was 0.2 kilometers an hour quicker than Sebastian Vettel.
Vibration getting stronger and stronger on the right front.
Copy that, Nico, copy that. We'll check the metrics.
Maybe something to cause concern then on the race leader. For Massa and Vettel, speeds differing in the middle sector through most of the corners in a straight line. Seems that Williams has got the speed to keep the Ferrari at bay, but can Vettel surprise him? Look how much closer he's getting on this lap. He's struggling for grip and traction a little bit, isn't the Williams to me?
But they're talking about a Mercedes here, check the metrics, the oscillations they'll be able to see from telemetry, because the concern is if your wheel gets too far, your tyre gets too far out of balance, can actually break the suspension. So Rosberg just checking in to say, that's what I'm feeling. What are you seeing?
Well, Hamilton now within 5 seconds of the race leader, Vettel within 4/10 of Felipe Massa in third. It is going right down to the wire, 5 laps to go here in Austria. Still the order of the podium places undecided. Sebastian Vettel, who's been on the podium 5 times this season. Felipe Massa yet to finish in the top 3 in 2015.
Ferrari much better on the brakes. He just hasn't got the straight line speed. If he gets anywhere near in the braking zone, I think he'll have him.
Only 5 drivers finishing on the podium so far in 2015. Will it be a new name to add to that list? Here's Sebastian Vettel getting much, much closer. This is the part of the track where the Ferrari has the pace and has the grip and has the ability to close up, but is there anywhere to pass in this middle sector? And to add to the intrigue, there's Roberto Merri coming into the battle as well, about to be lapped once more.
Blue lights flashing for Merri to let him know this two are bearing down on him, and don't turn in, don't turn in. Well, and Vettel was bold there. He had to keep going, but if that Mana Mauricio had turned in, that would have been a massive impact.
Nico, is it all the time only on the brakes? Just try and
all the time, and it's not a flat spot, it's just a tire. Are you sure there's no reliability concern on the tire?
Not at the moment, Nico.
There's a lot
information that we...
All eyes on that, okay? All eyes on that.
Absolutely, absolutely, but no concerns at the moment.
Well, there's a lot of concern in Rosberg's voice there. Another 4/10 Hamilton's just taken out of him on the Prix. Sorry, Martin. Just thought he had half an opportunity there to dive down the inside.
So you're saying it's basically the tyres going out around. He hasn't flat spotted it, although we have seen them puffing their tyres into some of these corners. But as you say, a lot of concern going on there. And this was Verstappen and Maldonado, and Verstappen at the moment still has that position.
Yeah, just. And this is what it looked like from off-board and a different camera angle, and they're going wheel to wheel, and Maldonado just kind of backed out of that, thought he'd better before they both came together. Half a second, the difference between Massa and Vettel. It's 4.5 seconds between Rosberg and Hamilton out in front. These are the closest battles out on track. Maldonado now drops 7/10 behind Verstappen. Ricciardo still catching Sergio Perez, but he's 6 seconds behind the Force India in that scrap for the last points place. And is Sebastian Vettel going to get a chance once more to dive down the inside or go around the outside at turn 3, where he tried to catch Felipe Massa unawares on the previous lap? Massa will be wise to it on this occasion, though.
Vettel staying out of the slipstream there, preferring some cooler air coming to his car. So whether he's managing something inside the cockpit of that Ferrari too, brake temperature or otherwise.
Would so love a little braking zone round about here, Sebastian Vettel, to try and ease his way up and maybe pass Felipe Massa in the middle part of the lap. 2 laps remaining, and out in front, 4.2 seconds the gap between Rosberg and Hamilton. There's Rosberg, the man who won in Austria in 2014, still holding on to the lead, but very concerned about the vibrations in his car.
And of course we see Maldonado in front of Verstappen now.
Good point.
So we think he's gone wide at turn 1. We're about to see that. So Verstappen, oh my goodness.
Well, A, how did he save that? B, how did they not touch anyway? The least likely outcome of that, Martin, for me, was Verstappen going on at turn 1.
Yeah, and of course Maldonado had his DRS rear wing open, and I think that was a day late and $1 short there. Was it? Maybe, I think it was almost like Verstappen when he ran into...
Tires are completely gone.
Well, at least you still got 4 of them, son, because you're very lucky there's not 1 or 2 missing. I think that was just, unfortunately, one moving right as the other moved left.
Brilliant control, and they're still going to go at it again, aren't they? As the race leader, Nico Rosberg, stays ahead of them. And Verstappen behind Maldonado. There's Lewis Hamilton in the background as well, and the gap is 2.2 seconds. We're on the final lap of the race here, and I don't think that checkered flag can come soon enough for Nico Rosberg.
Where's the scraps behind? Ricciardo hasn't quite caught Perez. He's a 4 seconds adrift as well, and nor has this man caught the ever popular Felipe Massa, who looks like he's going to be on the final step of the podium. Ooh, does it slow down? Yes, it does. He's so much quicker on the brakes, isn't he?
Going for it right towards the checkered flag. Hamilton still pushing on as well. Looks like he might be running out of time, which will be to Nico Rosberg's delight, of course. Had it all there for him in qualifying yesterday after Hamilton spun. Rosberg couldn't get it together through the final corner. This time he rounds that final corner now to make it back-to-back wins in the Austrian Grand Prix for Nico Rosberg, who wins at the Red Bull Ring, for Mercedes, who take a 1-2 finish in consecutive races for the first time this season. He reduces the gap to 10 points at the top of the championship, and it is all smiles for the Austrian Toto Wolff, head of motorsport at Mercedes-Benz. It will be all smiles at Williams too, as Felipe Massa finishes on the podium for the first time this season and keeps Sebastian Vettel at bay. A slow pit stop thwarting Vettel in the end. He settles for 4th place. Williams will make it a podium and a 5th place finish, with Bottas coming home in the top 5.
Yeah, guys! Yes! Come on, guys!
Great job, Nico, great job.
He will be mightily, mightily happy. Will Nico Rosberg, at his start, good enough to get him ahead of his teammate, and at the finish, still to be there. Very timely win for him indeed.
He had the start and he had the pace. And Lewis was pushing so hard, obviously he went wide out of the pits, which pretty much took him out of the picture completely. But
Okay, Lewis, well done, mate. Not the result we wanted, but P2 will take that.
We didn't hear the reply, sadly, today. Felipe Massa, well, goes through 1,000 career points. Just given that you score a lot more points in Formula 1 these days than he did when he first started. It was obvious.
Yeah, guys, you're very good. Very good, I'm happy.
But a 40th podium for Felipe Massa in Formula 1.
yeah, I mean, you can understand the pep talk there on the radio. I don't think Lewis will take that very well. He basically didn't have an answer for Rosberg's speed.
And didn't get away at the start, trying to cover him off, Martin, and by the time he did that, Rosberg was already there.
Yeah.
Behind Valtteri Bottas in 5th, Nico Hülkenberg with a 6th place finish for Force India. Strong performance from Hülkenberg, his best finish of the season. Double point scoring for Force India too. Perez coming home in 9th, Maldonado